Okay, keep going. The harmonic series. And before that, green sleeves. Why? First of all, greetings, salutations from space, and aloha from Earth. I'm Gemini Brett. It's been a while. It's good to see you. Green sleeves because it's kind of odd, but I've been listening to The Planets by Gustav Holst. And I would love to be able to play bits from Mercury for you, but it's beyond me. So I was reading about Holst today and was reading about his interest in mysticism, in Hinduism, in astrology, which is very, apparent in this amazing work, The Planets. I was a proud papa yesterday when I was playing different pieces or movements from the planets for Koa, a 10-year-old at the house, and he was able to identify, oh, that's Mars, right? That's Venus, that's Mercury. I was like, yes. Only the kid of astrologers, right? His mama, Scorpiona. And myself run constellations with many, many stars, like a few of you I see here. And I'll get back to that, but to the planets, to the planetus, to the moving stars. So I'm reading about Gustav Holst and his influence on rock and roll music, and this premise that maybe he influenced the Beatles, but he certainly influenced the fifth Beatle, George Martin, their producer, and some evidence was suggested in that in Gustav Holst's St. Paul's Suite, Green Sleeves, which you just heard, the English folk song, is used in this fade out. And then, of course, George Martin did the same in the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. All You Need Is Love, which, by the way, I have discovered rhythmically is a luni-solar calendar because it alternates between 29 beats and 30, just like we often alternate between 29 days and 30-day months to keep the lunar phases, the synodic cycle of the moon, which is about 29 and a half days on average, right? And I love that of, St. Paul is also heard, St. Paul's Suite. And I guess I'll just tease that around Halloween, All Saints Day, probably a little bit later for the elections, my friend, Histori Ann, and I will be transmitting some astro history around the strangest thing, which is at the seed of my own awakening, which is the Paul is dead myth, or perhaps more. All right, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's be here now. So what you are about to experience, and I haven't yet hit record, is the third of 3 supplemental journeys to support a deep dive into the Earth astrology of Mercury. So constellations is the School of Earth Astrology's community space. I want to show you where you can find it online, and I hope you'll find that from this video you're about to experience today, it's worth checking out for a month. So you can go to my website, GeminiBrett.com, where you can book sessions with me or check out other things that I do. If you click this Constellations Community tab, you will be brought to a place that you'll get to right away should you click, GeminiBrett.com/constellations. Yeah, that looks like this. And it'll tell you what it is. Anna and I are leading tours around one planet each month. We started with the sun, and then the moon, and then the lunar nodes, and then the Earth, Mercury, and we're on to Venus. So later today, I'm teaching an Earth astrology of Venus class where I'll be getting into the Venus cycle with the sun in Earth's sky, the 5-pointed star that is drawn over 8 years, which are 13 Venus years with 5 kisses. Perhaps you're familiar with those numbers, 5, 8, 13, and the Fibonacci sequence. That brings us to the golden number 5. I'll probably speak a little bit more about that today when this keyboard is heard. That's a little sound check that tells me I should turn that down. Let's check the flute. All right. What about the strings? Because today, friends, we're playing with some heavenly harmony, AstroMagic of Mercury. So let me just encourage you to check out constellations. You can join for a month. You can find that again at geminibrett.com/constellations. When you click join now, by the way, you can click Star Tribe as a coupon code there. And that will bring that thing down from 2222 to 1933. If you've been studying at the School of Astrology, you know why 19. That has everything to do with the sun and the moon and the earth, the so-called metonic cycle, 19 years being almost exactly equal to 235 lunations, and the 33 for thrice great Hermes Trismegistus. All right, anyway, if you join now and check us out for a month, you can leave anytime. You will find all of these videos waiting for you. Our tour of the sun and the moon, the lunar nodes, the earth with lots of bonuses, Mercury, and there's this whole bonus class section down beneath Venus here. Eclipses, eclipse cycles, much more to find, lunar standstill transmissions. There's many things there, including some interviews with amazing beings. One of those is here too for the Homeric hymn of Hermes, which I share is actually a story of sacred astronomy. And pretty soon there's going to be a Mercury bonus 3. That's what I'm just about to hit record for. So please support the work for $19.33 if you use the coupon Star Tribe at geminibrett.com and then head to the Constellations community. You will find an opportunity to come in, check out all those classes, join us for the next live transmission, which is at 1 p.m. Pacific today, Thursday, October 16th, 2025. You might be listening to this at a time that I perceive as the far future. Hopefully Constellations still awaits you, depending on how far into the future you might be. Thanks for visiting us here in the past, in my current present timeline. Your presence is a present. But anyway, yeah, we will continue on. In Constellations, the first week every month, Anna and I together transmit the archetype of the planet that we for that month will tour. The next week, Anna leads a coaching circle. The following week, I take an astrology deep dive into the astrology, but also through the lenses of our sister sciences, number and space and time astronomy, number and space geometry, number and time harmony, and number itself, the number magic of it all, where we talk not only about 12, but 12-ness. Okay, so I think that's enough of a setup. I'll hit record and we will have a second beginning to this one thing. First, a cup of tea. How are you? Checking in with the comments here. Hi, Nadine. Hi, Nina. A couple very active stars in the constellations. I should mention as well that Constellations has regularly scheduled community discussions. The fourth week of the month, I lead one. That's also a Q&A for what's happened during that orbit. But there are at least 2 community discussions that happen every week that I don't attend. So people can feel like they're not being watched or whatever. I'd like to attend, but I feel they don't flow as well when I do. People absolutely love them. It's just an opportunity to connect with fellow star seekers, to explore this strange stuff together. So Nina, thanks for writing there that I love constellations. Nadine, good to see you too. Sorry about last night because my Mariners got whipped in Seattle. I appreciate that, Nadine. System Indigo, hello, where can I read more about Holst and his work? I've been listening to Planets for years. That's awesome. I was reading just a short passage specifically about the planets at Spotify. I do intend to tour his natal chart at some point in time, and to perhaps look at some of his life events, like a pretty tricky childhood, it sounds like. He dealt with lots of different illnesses. I read this morning his mother died young. That's true of Bach as well. And his father was particularly harsh, it sounds, but found mysticism and Hinduism. I knew none of this an hour ago. So I read that at like the bio on Spotify, which is where I was listening to the planets. So I don't know how to answer that question, but when I do, it's probably something that I will share here at the channel. So please subscribe to this channel. And if you're here watching this video, whether you're live or beaming in from a time that I currently perceive to be the future, please hit that like button. Please help me battle the algorithm, and share this around with fellow seekers. All right, I'm gonna make it worth your while, and we better get on with the show. So let me find the record button. Another sip of tea, a deep breath, call in Mercury. Greetings, friends, and welcome back to our tour of the magician, Mercury. This is the third of 3 supplemental videos to honor my great guide, Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great. So, of course, 3 beyond the 1 long journey that we took initially. We explored in the first of these supplemental videos here of Mercury and constellations. Thank you for aligning your star with ours. We explored the Mercury synodic return years at 7, and 6 years later at 13. 7 years later at 20, 6 later at 26, 7 at 33, 7 at 40, right? So 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. At some point in my life, I will write a song using alternating bars of 7 and 6 beats to really honor Mercury. But as Mercury, the trickster, of course, would eccentrically have us do, you've got to flip the script at some point and not be so regular. So not 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6 till the cows come home or the dogs come to join the video. Hello, Isabel. But rather 7, 6, 7, 6. Wait, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. Oh, listen to Isabel's playing the rhythm and water drinking. All right, if you're going to be here, you need to chill out, and there will be music. Understand that is. It just is. All right, anyway, that was the first video, right? The second video, we were looking more into the quality of number, thanks to our sister science of geometry, or sacred geometry, if you prefer. Of course, we'll be there some today. In fact, you're going to see some things on repeat. We will retrograde back to some of the things that I showed in video 2. Because as we know, and as you've heard me say, and you will hear me say many more times, redundancy is built into every great space mission. We want to honor these mysteries, which are difficult to describe because these are the mysteries, you know, but at a pace through which they can be received. And that's especially true today, because we want to explore this great gift that Hermes gave us the first day of his life, when he snuck out of Maya's cave and stole Apollo's cows, right? Well, he used one of those cows to create gut strings for the lyre, right? For the harp, for this instrument that Hermes created on the first day of his life, the first instrument that could play a chord, right? On which we could hear intervals where more than one note could be sounded on the same instrument. In this way, Hermes gave us this gift of harmony, right? Number in time, frequency, vibration, which speaks not only about tone, sound, but the way tones relate. So here we are in constellations, already touring the beautiful Venus, and I woke up and saw her this morning. And we often describe Venus, who at the time of this recording is traveling with the sun in the sign of Libra, right? We often describe Venus as the relationship planet. And this is not something I'm here to deny, but I will say that Mercury has so much to do with the way we relate to, right? These important skills that help us connect, like speech, communication, that help us communicate with spirit, these amazing gifts like harmony and number and language, letters, right? This is Mercury's purview, and Mercury is known, at least in the tradition, as the planet of commerce. This is exchange, right? And so relationship, maybe in a different way than we might think of it, right? In that more kind of Venusian expression, perhaps, but definitely a relationship planet, I should suggest. System Indigo, nice to see your real name revealed. and yeah, it was very nice to meet you in Mexico as well. Thanks for being here. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say live stream stuff. We're recording a class. So let me put that away on a different screen and be with you. All right. Why the 12 hoodie? Well, some of you may know this means I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. Why? Perhaps because we find the eye of Horus in their logo. Maybe. But that's not why I wore this today anyway. I wore this because we want to honor the truth that creation creates in 12s. Now that truth might be hard to find by following the lights through our earthly sky, because of course the sun and the moon have 12.3 cycles per year. And that's why it takes 19 years for the cycle of moon phases to synchronize, because it's actually 12.37. And I could go on and on like that, but I'll just say it can be difficult to find 12ness by following the heavens. Like, why 12 constellations? Why 12 signs? Is this just some arbitrary thing? If it was, wouldn't we have 10? Well, you know, you can find 12 in the human design as well. You touch the pads of your fingers with your thumb: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, right? We have 4 3s, 3 4s, 6 2s, 2 6s in 12, right? So polarity, triplicity, quadruplicity, what I like to call hexaplicity, 12 being the first abundant number. Look it up. Like 360, the degrees of a circle, is an abundant number, while 365 is deficient, and certainly 365.24, right? The days in a year. So the 12 can be a bit difficult to see in our sky it is often felt that the 12 sign zodiac was born out of the 12 lunations per year, cycles of moon phases, but there's 12.3, so it's just not so precise. The 12 is much easier to see in the realms of our sister science, number in space, geometry, where the 12ness just jumps off the launch pad when you start sweeping circles with the compass, and it cannot be denied. In our journey here in constellations, in these Earth astrology deep dives, we will build the zodiac at the launch pad. We will see how the 12-spoked wheel is born through 7, or really 6 around 1, and how 7 comes from 3 and leads to 12. And creation creates in 12s. The dog's getting very tense. We can hear the 12ness in this bark. We can hear the 12ness in the realms of our sister science, number in time, frequency, vibrations, right? So 12. In the Western harmonic tradition, we divide the octave into 12 spaces. Now, if you were counting, you heard 13. But the 13th, the octave, which of course means 8, it's kind of the same as the first. Let's first hear the 8. This is a scale with which I'm sure you've heard. These days we teach it as the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Oh, do. Wait, we already had that word. Do. Why are both those notes called do? And before I get away from 13 and 8, let's just share that, in this key, it's called the key of C. We don't need to get too deep into the jargon of music. I'd rather you hear it and feel it rather than think it. It's one of the gifts of finding the 12ness in this sister science of embodiment, of harmony, of number and time, right? But the mind is also a beautiful thing. So let me just show you 5, 8, and 13. All right, because in this key of C, and I'm choosing that because it has this major scale. That's only using the big keys, the white keys on the piano, and not using... Oh, that sounds nice. You can just do that all day. Pro tip, if you want to sound like, well, let me say it in a better way. If you want to go discover beautiful melodies and you've never sat at a piano, just sit and play the black keys. Because you'll be playing pentatonic scales, which are the heart of folk music from so many lands, so many worlds, Africa and China. Most Native American flutes are in the pentatonic space because it's just beautiful, right? And by the way, pentatonics don't only exist in black keys. Like I can play them, I don't know, here. But in that case, you need to know a little something about the theory, or more importantly, just be able to hear it and move from one space to another, like from one sign to another, for example. But the design, at least on this instrument, right? This is a melodica, and you're actually hearing reeds like in a harmonica. But of course, it's designed in the keyboard of the piano, which comes from the harpsichord, right? This fixed note instrument helps us, in a way, see the musical map. So in the key of C, which I relate to Cancer, Cancer C, the C's from which we came, the major scale, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, is only in the white keys. And you start, by the way, C is the one that is to the left of the two black keys, because you can see the black keys go 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Oh wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, but to the key to the left of the two black keys, that's we call the note C, right? And if you just start there and play only the white keys, you hear the major scale. If you play the 5 black keys within, I can't like not jam on that. That's the pentatonics, right? 5 pent. And then you get 5, 8, 13. So if you're familiar with the Fibonacci sequence, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, which is 12 12s, which, you know, that sequence that brings us to the golden number. That's in our pentagonal form, right? It's one of the reasons why 5 is said to be the number of human. Why is 5 said to be the number of love? Well, we're going to explore that in Venus time, of course, right? And we'll get into 5s here too, like in what we call the cycle of fifths. I think I'm out of keyboard. Or the circle of fifths, and how like that, in a way, it said was the first kind of exploration of Pythagoras to bring us to the Western harmonic system. Though frankly, we have found tablets from Sumeria that speak about the planets, the 7, and how to tune the harp, right? That might say things like Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Moon. So wait, why moon and moon, do and do? And that has everything to do with 1 and 2. So while I can say that higher note you just heard, higher frequency, higher vibration, faster thing, is the 13th, count with me. 13, or the 8th, it is called the octave, like an octagon, 8, right? So let's count with me, we'll count to 8. But really, it's 12 and then the octave, or 7 and then the octave. Now, astrologers, where have you heard 12 and 7 before? How about the signs and the planetus, which of course means the wandering stars, yes? Those which we can see traveling against the backdrop of the constellations of the fixed stars. And those include the lights, right? So the 7 planetus of our tradition, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. But why that order? Everybody starts with the sun. Sun sign astrology, right? Or maybe moon. Moon because closest to us, right? And in the old image of us falling from pure spirit from the place of one light, we fall first as we incarnate through the sphere of the fixed stars. So that's 2, right? The 1, 2 fixed stars, 3 Saturn, 4 Jupiter, 5 Mars. 6, the sun, then Venus, then Mercury, the moon. All right, Mercury, 8. How do you do that? Oh, let's do it like this. All right. Wait, isn't that 24? The hours and okay, sorry, Mercury 8, and it is fascinating, something we're going to explore a bit today, that Mercury orbits the sun in 88 days. Well, 88 Earth days. But why should they care on Mercury? Interesting time for an earthquake, but that just happened. Very gradual one. So I think we're okay, not even going to check in on the family, but okay. On Mercury, the year is half a day long. Oh, wait. We'll get back to that because we're going to see that the first 3 harmonics of the most miraculous thing that ever was, probably the source of creation itself, the harmonic series, which I'm here to share about with you. The first 3 harmonics are in the AstroMagical mystical astronomy of the planet Hermes. Day for a year, solar year versus sidereal year, and so we'll be speaking a bit about the astronomy today, but we really want to hear it. And so we shall. All right. Where to be? So this harmonic series, it also eventually brings us to 12ness. So 12 is not arbitrary. And astronomically, perhaps 12 signs to keep the year clock of the 12 months in a year. But again, there's 12.3 cycles of lunar phase, so that's kind of harder to experience. The 12 is just precise when we find our way to the launch pad and explore number in space, our sister science of geometry, or sacred geometry if you prefer. Oh, the crescent of Sol. Hello. 12 is found here as well, especially in a way that it said Pythagoras played. And I'm out of keyboard on this thing. If I was at the grand piano, I could run through the circle of fifths and kind of get back to where I began, although it would be a very high note and I began very low. So how is that the same? Well, it's the same and it's different. It's kind of like spirit and soul. We're going to be there some more today and every day, as we should be. The way that we are tuning this thing these days, and I'm not even speaking of the A equals 440 hertz versus 432 hertz, which you may have tuned into. I'm speaking of what we call equal temperament, which is take this space of an octave, or let's start calling this the space between the first and the second harmonic. And I'll share more about what that is and why that is, right? So equal temperament takes that range of frequencies. The second harmonic has twice the frequency of the first. Okay, which means literally these waves are moving twice as fast as these ones below. So it's a 1-to-2 relationship. And by the way, that's not only like C and C, near C sharp and C sharp. D and D. All right, it's just hearing one pitch that has twice the frequency, twice the speed, because half the wavelength, that's going to be a lot easier to see on the strings. That's the relationship between 1 and 2, between the first and the second harmonics. All right. So equal temperament is this thing that happened around the time of Bach, which really makes it much easier to play in any key on the same instrument. And it's a long story, and I'm trying not to get too jargoned here. But equal temperament takes this space of frequency between the first harmonic, the root, and twice that frequency, the space that we call a musical octave. Again, oc because the eighth note of the scale, right? But really it's the first. What? Anyway, equal temperament takes that range of frequency between like x and 2x and divides it equally into 12 slices, just like the 12 signs of 30 degrees each divide the 360-degree wheel of life into 12 equal divisions, right? Well, this equal temperament thing is beautiful and convenient, and we're really used to hearing it, like, but that relationship of those two pitches, it's kind of outside of nature, because nature exists as a result of harmonics. It's why I'm so inspired to speak of these mysteries that I find very difficult to convey. It's one thing to talk astrology. It's another if you add musical harmony on top of that. It's like jargon on top of jargon, right? And there are many astrologers who are musicians. There are many musicians who are astrologers. But of course, there's many astrologers who are not musicians and many musicians who are not astrologers. So speaking of like one jargon, it's enough, right? You get into a whole nother set of jargon and it multiplies the difficulty times a gazillion, or at least 12. So thanks for bearing with me if words like C and octave, temperament are new. Anyway, this division of the octave into 12 equal slices called equal temperament, it's in a sense not natural. It's close to nature, but it's not nature. But it's also incredibly convenient. And on an instrument like this melodica, it's all I can do. And the 12 divisions of this space between, in that case, C and C, or in this case, D and D, or E and E, basically the somewhere. So, right, it's good when we start playing with intervals, like an octave, or the relationship of the first and the second harmonic, to call upon songs with which you are familiar, songs that feature those intervals. Let's turn this mic down and hopefully remember to turn it back up. So, Nadine, this one's for you. Nah, this one. This one. Sorry. So just the first two notes of Take Me Out to the Ball Game is that octave, right? Song that perhaps more are familiar with, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the first two notes, an octave. So somewhere. Chestnuts. I love this is one of the David Bowie songs. There's a spaceman. He'd like to come and see us, but he thinks he'd blow our minds. Probably would, right? So just finding that octave, and I just cannot highly enough recommend when you're out walking around, contemplating your astrologies, maybe especially the sun and the moon, or things like spirit and soul. The one thing that ever was, is, and will be spirit, and a reflection of that one thing in its entirety, but a reflection, a unique reflection that will never repeat, soul, right? And for me, that's the story of the sun and the moon, right? And the two circles, which are one, that birth the crescent of soul. So also, in considering these mysteries that really can't be expressed in words, to find this in tone. So, just being with the one. Do, and you'll find, like for this octave, or this first and second harmonic, that if you just kind of like push a little bit more, it just like pops out. And that's like much easier to see here. So also really encourage you to get a flute. I mean, get a flute that is designed to express this major scale, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Like a recorder would do that for you. This is a Peruvian flute. But when I, just hold this like lowest tone, which I can't, because I'm not covering the thumb. And I just kind of push a little bit, suddenly I'm hearing the second harmonic. Now, how the heck does that happen? I want to show it to you in a different way. Okay, so as you can see, one, the lower frequency, the lower tone, which by the way is a slower wave. I have all of the holes on this flute covered, right? As I lift fingers, do you see how in a sense the flute is getting shorter? Because once all these are lifted up, now the air is coming out here, right? So let me just show you that one finger at a time. Like essentially, I'm taking a pipe and I'm making it shorter. Like that's what a trombone or a slide whistle, right? Woo, does, right? But on a flute, we just lift fingers, or on the saxophone, we lift keys, which hopefully you can see are kind of doing the same thing, right? Like as I go here, the keys closing, right? That basically just as I'm closing down, it lengthens the pipe. That's all of them closed. Let's try that again. See, I need to do that kind of loudly, and I don't want to keep messing with the mic. All right, so let's do it here. What just happened? I didn't lift a finger, and we heard these different tones. So all of them covered, and then none of them covered. Do, 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 do. Octave, again, 8. Come on in, Izzy. But be chill. But I can also reach that octave without lifting a finger. In fact, on this instrument, it's much easier for me to sound the second harmonic than the first. The first, I really kind of need to make myself big in here, right? It's as within, so without. So for me to bounce around like, I'm changing my insides to somehow manipulate the outside, in this case, this flute, so that you're hearing different pitches, notes, tones that are in this family of the harmonic series. And the most simple of these is the relationship between 1 and 2. So let's play that game a little bit, and the sweater will help, right? So let's feel like in rhythm. The simplest, maybe that means most elegant relationship, or polyrhythm, relationship between two different rhythms, and it's 1 to 2. All right, so this one is going to go 1. Maybe let's just sun, 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 moons, right? And with my other hand here, and I really encourage you to do this with me, or I'll stop and you can kind of get it going yourself. One hand's going to do 1, and the other's going to meet that on the 1, but then also have 2. 1, 2, 1. My left, I just can't snap with the left as well as I used to, but I'd also like rather feel it in my body, or like stomp this. So it would be a hop, right? Like 2 feet, and then, wait, a hop is also 1 foot, isn't it? So anyway, 2 feet, then 1 foot. Or I just like to beat my chest here, right? So I'm gonna go, and you see what I'm doing. And we're gonna see this actually displayed in a couple different ways, thanks to different people who've created amazing things online that we can play with. And I'll show you where you can find them to do the same. But really bring this into the body, you know, feeling it is so important. For me, the whole reason why I want to help the star student deepen their relationship with the mysteries through our sister sciences of number and space, geometry, number and time, harmony, number itself, because this all leads to number and space and time, the astronomy. And I want you to have an embodied experience of the astronomy, like I'm teaching about Venus today. So why would I not wake up and bring my baby out and find a place where I could see Venus and ask for guidance and support, right? Of course. It's like Venus isn't just some glyph on a page. Well, when she is, she's the circle of spirit above the cross of matter. And that says so much if you know something about the circle and the cross. And we'll play with that a little bit today too, because redundancy is built into every great space mission, of course. So back in the day, you wouldn't teach astrology until the student was like deep in their, I want to say understanding, but I think experience is a much better word, of number in time, number in space and time, because you just have an embodied experience of it. So why not just like beat on our chest and looking like the reflected thing here, and I have to remember which one is the 2. So I'm just like sun, moon, sun, moon, sun. You know, maybe we should say the moon, sun, moon, sun. Oh no, wait, I like it. Moon over here, because moon has twice the tidal pull on Earth's water in yours than the sun does, right? So that's good. So sun, moon, sun, moon, sun, moon. And you know, we can take their cycle and divide it in 2, right? It's like waxing, waning. The waxing part of the cycle is said to be the sun, solar side, moon, sun, and the waning side said to be more nocturnal or lunar. So that'll work, like sun, moon, sun, moon. Please do this with me. Sun, moon, sun. Why should I be the only one embarrassing myself here? Sun, moon. Just really feeling this relationship of 2 and 1. And that's a polyrhythm, right? I'm taking the same amount of space, time, and dividing it on one hand with 1, and on the other hand, 2, in the same amount of space. Right? So that 1 to 2 relationship is here. Now we could speed that up. If I sped it up faster and faster and faster and faster, they wouldn't sound like beats anymore. They would sound something like this. That's also the 1 to 2 relationship. And maybe that's better to show you on the flute, because you can actually see when all the holes are uncovered, the air is coming out here, it's vibrating half of the pipe, while all the holes covered are vibrating the whole pipe. It's going to be easier to see over here, and thanks to Rosa Lauren, who I guess was no longer using this amazing Rosa Lauren device created by Kinder Music. Guessing maybe it's like Montessori school, Waldorf's maybe. So thanks to Rosa Lauren and Mama Papa and Cat Dog and whatever that has to say. Because I was asking for, actually literally a day where I was teaching these things, went out for a walk in our neighborhood with Scorpiana, with my partner and the baby and the pup. In our neighborhood, there's like lots of free stuff that's left out. And there were 2 of these. I took 1. So I'm wondering what the other one is now doing, because it just offers a way where I can share some of these things with you. So this is a monochord. I mean, really it's like a duo chord because there's 2 strings here. And it's also not even a monochord or a duo chord. You see that here as well. Because like typically we will have something like this where the only way you divide that string is with like a moving bridge like this, okay? So it's just a wooden triangle that when I put it under this string, now it's dividing the string length, right? So this one's undivided, full length, and this one, that's not it. Those are kind of cool, but I divided it in half. And what happens? The first and the second harmonic. And by the way, a way that I'm checking on that is not only does that like really resonate, but this side of the divider is producing the same note as this side, because if I split the thing in half, obviously 1/2 is the same length as 1/2, right? And so that's the mystery of what we call the octave, oct 8, because it's the 8th scale tone, but really it's the 1 and the 2, the first and the second harmonic. And see, since I divided the string length in half, there, that's better. The wave on the shorter string is traveling twice as fast. Faster means higher frequency, right? Literally, right? The frequency, like how long does it take for this wave to go back and forth, right? And the higher the frequency, the higher the vibration, literally, right? So increase your vibes. The higher the vibration, the higher the pitch. And the relationship between 1 and 1/2 creates a pitch relationship of 1 to 2. because half the string length, or half the pipe, is going to vibrate twice as fast as the full string length, or the full pipe. All right, so here on Rosa Lauren's amazing device, I've tuned the two strings to the same note, so then you can just see these two together. And I don't know if Rosa Lauren herself put these stickers on. I can say I did not, or if it comes like that, or if a teacher did, or who knows, right? But this big one, it's indicating the fret that's halfway between the two bridges, right? So you see this bridge here and this bridge here, right? Like that's the string length that's vibrating. And then halfway along that length, we have this metal fret, right? So that when I put my finger down here, it's pinching the string at that middle bit. Like that's what a fretboard is about, right? And I can tell you right now that that 1/2 fret divides the string in half, of course. This would be at 2/3 and 5/6 and so 8/9 of the fretboard. Why? Because I'm like familiar with the harmonic series, and I'm hoping to get you more familiar with that. We probably won't tour it all the way to 8/9, maybe, but certainly 1 to 1/2. All right, so let me pinch this string at the big circle here. Over the rainbow, take me out to the ball game. Happy birthday. I'm turning 50, holy moly, in 8 days. Yikes. Right, so these places where we hear that octave, that's another one I didn't mention before. In the middle of the jam, right? Happy birthday, dear astrology. All right. Well, what about this one? Ooh. Oh, that's beautiful. And that's like the next most simple relationship between two numbers. And it creates the musical fifth. What's the next pitch? You all know that. Right? All astrologers should love Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Oh, did you think it was A, B, C, D? Huh. Well, Mercury brought us the alphabet. And Mercury always looks twinkly. It's one of the reasons why Mercury's a trickster, because he's down there in the humidity or the pollution or whatever. Baba, black sheep. Well, you know, Hermes, after he stole Apollo's cows, did become the guide of the flocks and herds. So it's all Mercury. You might be able to see that this length is 2/3 of the pipe, or that this length this fret here is 1/3 of the whole board, and therefore, of course, the side of it 2/3. It's a little hard to do there. Let's do it here. So a really fun thing about like a movable bridge, like on the monochord, and instead this is what Pythagoras was up to, is you start sliding this thing around. And there'll just be places that like resonate better than other places. Like that one. Right, and especially as you play them against like the bass pitch of the full note. There's just a harmony, right? They just sit well. You know, if I get this in the right place, and that's not it. I'm trying to find the right place where I can move this movable bridge. That's not it. So that the two sides of the string are in an octave relationship. So that's it, as best as my ear, which is pretty limited, can do. It's growing. I shouldn't like demean myself. Working on it, improving, because I'm walking around and singing these notes, which I sadly just never did as a kid. So I love that that's part of Koa's school. He's at a Waldorf school. He's 10 now in 5th grade. Oh wait, 5th. Do. So. So I want to hear the relationship between the full string and the divided string, and that's why like the movable thing is so helpful. But a reason why this instrument, in a sense, like it gives me something that this one does not, where the frets are here, where like this one I just know because I trust the fine folks at Kinder Music, right? I know that the string length between that fret is 2/3 of the full string length. Where this other one, I'm having to like try it with my ear, right? There's no markers on there or anything. But it's harder for me to like play. Let's see if I can do it. The shorter side of the string. Because I want you to hear how 2/3 is twice 1/3. We all know that, right? 2/3 is twice as much of the pie as 1/3 is. And so if I can find the right division, and I'm like looking for twinkle, twinkle. And those of you with really good ears out there are like, dude, you're struggling. Sharp. I don't think you need really good ears to hear that. But anyway, if I can get in the right place, then 2/3 and 1/3 are also going to create the octave, right? Because I have a string length that's half of the other string length, and the half is the octave, or the first and the second harmonic relationship. Okay, so let's see how we want to do this. First, I'm going to share with you a little bit about what the harmonic series is, like how it's actually quite natural. It's like literally the result of nature. It was going to take a tour of many, many harmonics, or maybe only the third, to understand why this sister science of number and time, frequency, vibe, harmony leads us to the truth that creation creates in 12s. So anyway, we're going to speak about the harmonic series a bit, and then we're going to explore the sacred geometry a bit to bring oneness, two-ness, three-ness to earth. And then I'm going to share with you how the first, the second, and the third harmonics, that relationship of 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 2 to 3, is found in the amazing magical astronomy of planet Mercury. And then we'll play a bit more with polyrhythm, like this simplest one, 1 and 2. We'll get to 2 and 3. Should we Mercury and Mercury and Venus, Mercury and Venus, Mercury and Venus. We play with 4 and 3 today? I don't think so. But I do want to speak more about 1 and 2 before we go to those places. And by the way, so sun, moon, get in there with me again? I mean, I guess because in their cycle we have the waning half and the waxing half, which are lunar and solar respectively. We can see that there. I like to see 1 and 2 in the circle of spirit and the crescent of soul, right? So we're going to play with that in number and space in the geometry place. But let's find a place where 1 and 2 are clearly in an astronomical experience. Well, it's one that happens every day, and it's called day, which I don't know how this works in other languages, but in English is a homonym, day and day, right? Like 2 different meanings. One being the 12 hours of daylight versus the 12 hours of night. Now, of course, it's only at equinox time, whether Aries equinox or Libra, that we actually have 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of nighttime, right? It's an amazing thing. Equinox, of course, equal, and you can see the Libra scales when we talk about that, right? In the tradition, however, and in some systems still, like planetary hours, we're not using what are called civil hours, where we take 60 minutes. Wait, that's 12 and 5. Wait, that's 12, 5. Anyway, sorry. Where we take 60 minutes and call that an hour, right? So then, of course, at a time like this, I'm broadcasting from Northern Hemisphere autumn, right? We have more nighttime than daylight at this time that I'm recording. Of course, the opposite would be true for you, QZ, who's down under, where it is currently spring, right? But in the planetary hour systems, we take the time from sunrise to sunset, in other words, daylight, and we divide that into 12 equal sections. Oh, that might have something to do with, or vice versa. And then we take the amount of time between sunset and sunrise and divide that into 12 equal sections. So in the fall or the winter, night hours are actually longer than day hours. And in the spring and the summer, day hours are longer than night hours. Let's just be around equinox, daylight and nighttime the same length. Well, interestingly, we call day the light period of those two, and of course night for the dark period. But we also use the word day to describe the whole thing, right? Like day, 124-hour rotation. Oh wait, 24, 2 12s. And 124-hour rotation of Earth with respect to the sun, the solar day, right? We call that a day, but we also use that word day to describe just the light part of that day, right? So it's actually a really great place for us to explore 2 and 1, because I can say like day, night, day, night, day. And the 1 is just using that word day to describe the entire rotation. Day, day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Mars's day, Mercury's day, Thursday, Thor's day, Jupiter's day, Venus's day, Saturn's day, Sun's day, Moon's day, Mars's day, Mercury's day, Jupiter's day, Venus's day, Saturn's day, right? We can do that thing, but we can also over here, it's like day, night, day, night, day, night. So day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night. Sunday, sun night, sun, moon day, moon night, Tuesday, Tuesday night, you know, whatever. So anyway, I really encourage you to explore 2 and 1. Now, again, that is in the harmonic series, the relationship between the first and the second harmonics, or between the second and the fourth, or between the fourth and the eighth, or between the eighth and the 16th, or the 16th and the 32nd. At some point, probably in the Venus jam, if we have time, space, I'll share with you the tetractys, right? The Pythagorean triangle, which on one side has this tripling sequence from the 1, 3, 9, 27, and that can go infinitely. But on the other side has the doubling sequence, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Notice I'm not speaking, even numbers of 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? You. No, I'm speaking doubling the binary code, right? 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024. Like numbers I'm too familiar with, because do you want to spring the cache for the 128 gigabyte phone or stick with the 64? Because now that I have a daughter, there's a lot of videos that are being recorded all the time because baby's the cutest thing ever, right? So, but don't film the concert, be at the concert. Okay, anyway, this doubling sequence from the 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, that side of the tetractys, that was said to be the feminine side. I always thought that was kind of strange. Like, I don't know why, but even numbers felt like more masculine to me for some reason. And in some systems, that's how it goes. But once I started feeling into two things, one mitosis, and the other the scene of the mitosis, which is the mother's womb, right? To quote Rumi from his beautiful poem Circles, I see a pregnant mother shaped by a soul within. And the planets and the spheres, I have gotten the hint. There's something about circles the beloved likes, right? Anyway, mitosis, of course, from sperm and egg, one single cell, miracle, and then that one cell becomes two. And then the two divide, so the two become 4, the 4 become 8, the 8 becomes 16, the 16 become 32, and that's like happening inside mother, where there's like two beings completely connected. It's really this like 2 in 1 thing. Do you see what I'm saying? So like those kind of explorations, and I'm sure there's many more I haven't found my way to yet, kind of like help me feel into why in those mysteries the tripling side was said to be masculine, and not odd numbers, and definitely not the 1, which is at the top of the tetractys. Like 1 is all things. It is the 1. It is everything that ever was, is, and will be. You can't put gender on that. It's everything, right? But on one side, and it's not even an odd, like it's taught that way, but I feel it's more about the doubling and the tripling. Although maybe, yeah, because things like 5, they happen in between. They happen as the result, for example, of 2 and 3. So I'm getting ahead of myself for those of you who will be at the Venus exploration later today. 5, the number of love, because it is created by 2 and 3. Now, I feel masculine and feminine can be a little bit of limiting terms, and we're exploring polarity. They're very polar terms, maybe more now than ever before, right? I prefer diurnal and nocturnal, day-like and night-like. Oh, because they really like, I can experience that with more depth. But there's something to this as we explore in the mysteries. And the truth is, like, on this side of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, if we speak about this musically, like we just get the same note, but we get the same note in its next expression of vibration or frequency. So let me start here. I guess I'll go to my lowest note, the one to the left of the 3 black keys is an F. So I'm just gonna, let's say I can go 1, 2, I can play 4 Fs on this limited keyboard. Here somewhere. Maybe that's a better range for some of you. Typically, by the way, when a man and a woman sing together, they sing in octaves. That's an interesting thing to pursue. Right? I just go over the rainbow and over the higher rainbow and over the higher rainbow and the higher one, right? Take me out to the real ball game, friends, right? But anyway, like on a grand piano of 88 keys, I'll do that 7 times from the lowest notes, right? And it can just get like double the frequency. And in the piano, it's actually, there's a hammer that's striking a string between this one and this one. This string is half the length of that string, like what we saw over here, right? Okay, well now what about half of this? Can I do this? So if I'm playing, like, here's half the string, here's a quarter of the string. Hear the octave? So 1 to 1/2 to 1/4. Right? Now if I could play 1/8 of the string, this is that. I can't get this to resonate. Maybe you've seen it, and I encourage you to just go search a video online. Just search like a guitarist playing harmonics. Maybe we can hear it here. If I just tap that string, at the half fret, or here at the quarter fret, you can kind of hear those notes pop out. And it's what's happening, by the way, as I change my insides to mess with the outsides here. I'm bringing us through the harmonic series. Now, one of those, the third harmonic, is not in the binary code. So those all were. Those were all this root note, which other on this instrument is a G. So G. Somewhere, G, G. And then the high one was the next G, right? It can go up to the next one. That would be, I went from the whole length to half the length to a quarter length. If I could do an 1/8 or a 16th or a 32nd, 120 or 64th, 128th, right? Going up that binary sequence, I'm just going up this, well, 1 to 2 relationship, which is a 2 to 4 relationship, or a 4 to 8, or an 8 to 16. Do you feel that? So in this interesting way, we're going to see this expressed geometrically in a sense. It's kind of like the 4 comes before the 3. That's like the weirdest thing to say, but I'm going to draw that for you. I have before, if you've been touring in the constellations, and maybe you're already connecting with what I'm talking about, what you know you're going to see. But harmonically, the 4, the 4th division, which produces the same note, but at the octave frequency, is the 2nd, right? Half the string, a quarter of the string, an 1/8 of the string, a 16th of the string, 32nd of the string. Like we're just getting, I'll say in the key C, 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 and like up the octaves. I think I actually just hit a 2nd octave, which I wouldn't usually try on screen. All right, so let me leave that seed planted and then just finally speak about the harmonic series. Like, how is this happening? Can do more of those on my instrument. Yikes, my apologies. It's interesting on the horn, maybe you could hear how like the fundamental, the root note was like trying to break through, even though I was like trying in here to like pop out different parts of the harmonic series. And sorry, there's some really ugly tones in there, right? Ugly is subjective, isn't it? But you know, I was just covering like all of these holes. So playing like the vibration of the full thing. There's an exercise we have on saxophone. Let me turn this down again, where we'll match like so what I'm doing is I'm moving back and forth. What I'm doing is I'm moving back and forth between like the way that the instrument is designed to play a specific note, like F, and the third harmonic of the lowest B flat where all the notes are covered, because that's going to vibrate the whole horn, and in a way it's like a fuller sound. So comparing kind of like all of these holes lifted to me playing the second harmonic of all of the notes covered. Like for me, all of them covered, but doing something inside so the second harmonic pops out. It's a fuller sound than that. And what we're doing on the horn, and I imagine flute players do it too, is we'll like work to make the sound that's vibrating less of the pipe feel as full as the sound that's vibrating the full pipe. So I just go back and forth, and it's something I should do on this instrument because it's new to me and I'd like to be able to develop some tone and some control and the like. Okay, so anyway, what the heck is happening? How can I change notes without lifting a finger? Right? And the answer is I'm bringing us through the harmonic series. So as this pipe vibrates, or as that string vibrates, many notes are produced. One, in this case, like the full flute, the full pipe. But as that whole thing is vibrating, or as this whole string is vibrating, so are the two halves of the string. And you can find videos online, by the way, if you look at like harmonic series on a string, where they'll show like slow motion of a string vibrating. And you can actually see how the two halves also vibrate. Like without me touching here or putting a moving bridge there, like it's just the whole thing vibrates and the two halves are vibrating. What miracle is that? And the 3/3 are vibrating, and the 4/4, and the 5/5, and the 6/6. By the way, 6 is twice 3. So that doesn't produce a new note. It produces the octave of the note that we heard on a third. Anyway, and so by the way, 2, 4, 6, 8, and no, 2, 4, 8, 16, 3, 6 comes from the 3 side. All right, I digress. 7/7 are vibrating, which is the strangest thing because you can't actually divide a whole thing by 7. Well, you could divide 49 centimeters into 7 centimeters, right? So We'll speak more about that when we get to 7, um, which is the weirdest and most amazing and beautiful thing. All right, so the harmonic series basically is just this series, musically anyway, of pitches that are in a whole number relationship to the whole thing. So whole number like 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, right? Now 2/3 is a really interesting animal that we want to get back to today. And so there's ways where, you know, a great string player could just tap the string. I think you're hearing it. I think you're hearing, can I just tap here? Right? If I tap at the, you're hearing this. It's just in resonance. Now, hearing that's an amazing thing, but like this is, I'm now convinced how creation creates the everything. And it doesn't have to be intentional. By the way, like it just happens. All right, well, let's get to a place that's maybe a little bit less difficult to express. So, by the way, in the School of Astrology logo, I'm sure you've noticed before that we find Hermes with the earth in his face, right? So the earth glyph, the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. Are we not spiritual beings having an embodied experience in earth and matter in a place with the appearance of time and space? Why? That allows growth. It allows us to move and change, right? The one only thing that ever was, is, and will be is everything. Therefore, it's like nothing. It can't grow, but it will never stop doing so because miracles like you, spirit reflected through soul, that must incarnate into a place with the appearance of time and space matter. So you can make moves, so you can grow, so you can change. As you grow, the everything grows. That's the game. All right. So Hermes, crescent of soul, circle of spirit, cross of matter, the only one of the planetus, at least the visible planetus, that utilize all 3 of these shapes that we use to create the glyphs that we use to speak about these amazing beings. All right. Well, what's the point? Source, where it all begins. Need to make sure that I'm sharing sound. I am. Because there will be a little bit of an audio support for this journey that we're on. So from source, from the nothing, from the womb, if you will, right? The 0 dimension, is 0 even a thing? Everything emerges. So the 1. Now that's how I was shown 1 in school, you know, and then 1 or 2. Well, that's quantity, measurable, but quality helps me see this line as 1 the, or 1 ray of the infinite radii of which a circle consists. Or perhaps a sphere. You know, I wanted to share this amazing quote. Plato. The definition of God as an infinite sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so the 1 line, the 1 radius, or the 1 of the infinite radii of the circle on a plane, or of like a sphere, if you can see them also coming out and in, right? The sphere, the heavenly form, the goddess, etc., right? Like, that's a great image for what I call 1 the, but the 1 is better expressed as the circle, which has no beginning or end when we look at its circumference, right? Which point in the circumference of the circle is the center of the circumference of the circle? All of them and none of them. Like the one point that they all share, which is the source, the center, right? Now, if I wanted to estimate the radius of that circle, sorry, the circumference, I'd have to cut it and turn it into a line, not estimate it, sorry, measure it, right? Because the tool of the geometer, the rule, like lines are measurable quantity, but curves are immeasurable quality. But we can, of course, estimate that circumference by working with that, right? The line that, as you can see here, produced the circle. That happens, we open the compass, right? That's a line, and then sweep it to create the circle. The circle itself has these three things. It has the radii, the center, and the circumference. The one is three. That's the Trinity, by the way. This is why you're not supposed to speak of the mysteries. You sound like a fool when you attempt to, I find, but I try. But right, if we want to estimate the circumference of that circle, we need to multiply that radius, or the infinite radii, which are all the same length, by 2. It gives us the diameter, right? In 2d, or 2r, or d, times pi. This transcendental, most magical, mystical number, right? Pi r squared, of course, would give me the surface area. 4/3 pi r cubed for the volume of the sphere, right? So pi, and as I've shared with you before, there are actually pi Mercury sun cycles as experienced from Earth each year. It's the most amazing thing, right? Only Mercury, of course. All right, so the one. Well, we're going to hear this as a tone, as an ohm. And then we're going to hear the second harmonic, oh, when the one becomes 2. One thing reflects upon itself, and the second, which is the same as the first, not 2, is born, right? We'll go from 2 to 3, and we'll hear the third harmonic come in. I'm going to bring it back to 1. So we want to get to 3 in a different way. So by the way, on a string, the first harmonic would just be the whole string. The second harmonic, half of the string. The third harmonic, a third of the string. Right? The fourth harmonic, a fourth of the string. But of course, the fourth is half of a half. Right? So if the whole string is C, half is a C, the next C up. The fourth is the next C up, the eighth is the next C up, the 16th to 32nd, the doubling or binary sequence, right? Halving is doubling pitch. But 3 brings us something new. And today we're going to explore how 5, or the fifth, comes out of the relationship between 2 and 3. All right. So when the 1 becomes 2, there is, in a sense, a line that exists between their centers. Right? I'll call that space, and I'll call this one time. The line between the 2 intersections of 2 circles, right? Now, 2 circles of the same size, the same radius, centered on each other's circumference, that's the vesica piscis, right? The mandorla, the sacred almond. Vesica piscis, the fish's bladder. I know some of you call that fish, the vesica piscis. We'll see this. It's the yoni, the gateway of all creation, in another expression, right? So as the 1 becomes 2, the crescent of soul is born from the circle of spirit. And the cross of matter is inherent. This is why I say when spirit reflects upon itself, right? Just as when you're taking a good look at yourself, who are you looking at? Who's doing the looking, right? The 1 becomes 2, which are not 2. Do you feel that in the octave, right? Because they're both G, right? So I'm at like a higher place, but I'm actually just back where I began. And if any of you have played with like magical hours, you know, planetary hours, you'll know we do that, you know, or like, I guess it would be more like this. just go forever, right? Because we go from Saturn to Jupiter to Sun, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Moon, and then we pop all the way back out to Saturn, right? And some systems, like this ancient Babylonian or Sumerian tablet that speaks about how to tune the harp, and it's very much also kind of an astrological transmission. It speaks of this descending order. This Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. Ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, do. Right? So once I do, do, it's just moon, moon. Although I'd rather kind of sun, moon, or day, 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 night, day. All right. Anyway, we want to now find the earth glyph in this mix, which is the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. To do so, I need to tame the longer line of this cross. And to do that, I need to change my compass length, right? The cross, the X marks the spot, like that showed me the center of the Vesca, of the mandorla, of the sacred almond, right? Well, now if I put my compass needle there and sweep this circle, I've created an octave circle. I've created the earth glyph, the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit, which, by the way, let's take the cross away so you can see that. Well, I guess I don't need to for the human eye. Or here we might see it as, the earth crowning from this sacred gateway, from the yoni. Have you seen this miracle happen before? Right? And for me, the sun considers itself from spirit, soul, moon is born. They're literally incarnational devices that help us come into matter. And in this way, and in this way alone, matter is born of this relationship between spirit and soul. But like, child is not born just because there's a mother and a father. Like, they have to become mother and father. There's this third thing that brings them together. In a sense, this kind of third hidden thing. So the cross of matter can happen. So this for me is like the most important meditation possible, of just seeing that earth kind of crowning from the sacred gateway of spirit and soul, or matter coming from spirit and soul. Now, why would I call that an octave circle? Well, its diameter, now shown here in blue, is half the diameter of these larger two circles, right? Shown in red. So the 1 to 2 relationship, the first, the second harmonic, right? And of course, playing half the string produces a note, a vibration that's twice that of the full string. Like, this is where we've been, hence the sweater I'm wearing today, right? All right. Well, taking that away so we can just see, this beautiful relationship with the human eye. All right, well, let's go back to 3 in this way. So some call this the tripod of life. You have your vesica piscis, right? 2 circles of the same radius centered on each other's circumference. And then a third circle of the same radius centered on one of the 2 intersection points. And by the way, I could go to the 4, but it's kind of not the 4 because it doesn't create a square. Rectangles are 4 too, but in a very different way. So the square is created in the way that I showed you before, that octave circle within, the womb of the larger 2. All right, but let's look at this tripod of life, where clearly you can see the equilateral triangle produced. But I want you to see as well, we don't need to go to 3 circles to find that equilateral triangle. We actually get 2 of them, one above and one below, or without and within, in the vesica, right? So the 2 centers of the 2 circles, and then one of their intersection points also gives us this equilateral triangle. All right, well, this is bringing us to these miracles of harmonics in the mathematical astronomy of Mercury. And I learned about this, along with so many other amazing mystical things, from this wonderful book called A Little Book of Coincidence in the Solar System by John Martineau, who is the editor of the Wooden Book series. A Little Book of Coincidence is one of many, many, many wooden books. They're all this small and they're all astronomically huge. They are the most amazing things. Get them all. You can get 6 of them by buying Quadrivium, which is a compilation of A Little Book of Coincidence in the Solar System, Sacred Harmony. I don't think they call it Sacred Harmony. There's one called Sacred Number. There's one that's called Sacred Geometry. Those 2 by Miranda Lundy, who might just be John Martineau and others. You didn't hear that here. And then there's a couple texts on mystical music. They're amazing. There's also things that you can't find in those wooden books that are contained within this compilation Quadrivium. Like the end, there's all these really cool like tables in the index. It's highly recommended. Pick it up. So the 4 classical liberal arts of number, they call it arithmetic. I call it number itself. Geometry, I prefer sacred geometry. Number in space. Harmony, which they call music here. Number in time. In cosmology, really astronomy, number in space and time, right? The diamond of the Quadrivium. And this isn't necessarily like from 1 to 12 through the Quadrivium process, but again, 12 over 2. Oh, that's a 2 to 1. To get 6, there's 6 books contained within the Quadrivium, and it's highly, highly, highly recommended. Okay, so hopefully, John, that's enough of a plug. And I mean that from my heart, for me to steal a page from your book to share with folks here today. This is from A Little Book of Coincidence in the Solar System, not on page 318. Oh, wait, 3 times 6, 18. Wanted to explore that harmonically. In A Little Book of Coincidence, it doesn't have that many pages, but in Quadrivium. All right, so Mercury and Venus's orbits. I wish I had 3 glasses to show this to you here, but you can see it in that geometry in the lower right of the page. There are few things more simple than a circle. With Kepler's discovery of the ellipses and Newton and Einstein setting them spinning, the planetary orbits can be thought of as orbital circles centered on the sun, with the eccentricity thickening the circle slightly, or giving the spheres a shell. So see Kepler's diagram, page 307. We're not going there, but get the book. All right. One of the very first things you can do with circles is to put 3 of them together so that they all touch. Amazingly, the orbits of the first 2 planets of the solar system are hiding this simple design. If Mercury's mean orbit passes through the centers of the 3 circles, then Venus encloses the figure. And that's amazing. And by the way, that 99.9% means that truth is 99.9% accurate when we look at the relationship between the mean orbits of Mercury and Venus. It's mind-blowing, beautiful. But I meant to actually start this last paragraph. So let's just highlight this. The triangle is one emblem of the musical octave 2 to 1. Now, I've read that line in this book, I don't know, 30 times, 33 times. But this is the first time where I was like, wait, why is that? What does that mean? And I started seeing this. So we're going to explore that, and we'll read the rest of that paragraph and get to Mercury's astronomy and how it encodes the first 3 of the harmonics in the series. Right, so what I did here is I drew that baseline. There are other things that are supposed to be happening simultaneously that for some reason aren't showing up for me. Oh, they're just not coming through on the screen well. So, oh, this is better. Okay. So the bottom one's getting across in 6 seconds and then 3 seconds for each of the other side lengths, right? So you get that 2 to 1. 2 sides in the same length of a time that it takes the other to move 1. So this is a way where I think the triangle is showing the 2 to 1 relationship, the octave. Then I realized, oh, I could just like color this thing in, and that's happening, right? It's like I didn't have to time it. I'm just like filling it in from one side to the other, and oh yeah, it does that, right? And it doesn't have to be an equilateral triangle. I mean, these are the things that I have to do to play with this. Like, here's an isosceles triangle, two sides of the same length, one obviously a different length, right? And that same thing's happening. I think as long as I have, I don't know, as long as I'm painting along the base, right, a parallel of one side, and it doesn't have to be isosceles either. Like, what do they call these? Scalene? Acute? I think. I don't know. Anyway, look at that, right? Like I can color along one base, one, and then the two other sides will get colored in the same amount of time. So the 2, 2, 1 in this shape that, of course, we identify with 3. We'll do it one more time in a different way to see, there's like the two shorter sides in the same amount of time as the one. Okay, so I think that's probably what's being said here, is that the triangle is one emblem of the musical octave 2 to 1. I'd have to ask John if I get to meet him, if that's what he meant when he wrote that line. And Mercury performs a delightful solo on this theme, as one Mercury day is exactly 2 Mercury years, during which time the planet has spun on its own axis precisely 3 times. Thus, the very first planet plays the very first harmonies and draws one of the very first geometrical shapes. We have started with 1, heard a 2, and seen a 3, a triangle. Okay, so we're gonna unpack that. But let's just share the truth that it is said that Mercury, the guide, on the first day of his life, created the lyre, the harp. Some say it had 7 strings for the planetas. Some say 3, thrice great Hermes. And this planet, the guide's planet, Mercury, the closest to the sun, and therefore being called the first planet here, though in the tradition we would say the 8th, because from the 1 through the stars, through Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon is 9, and then we're on Earth 10. That's in the Kabbalah and the Tarot, right? But Mercury 8, right? 8th from the light, but first from the sun. So anyway, the first planet plays the very first harmonies, 1, 2, and 3, and draws one of the very first geometrical shapes, the triangle. All right, we have started with 1, heard a 2, and seen a 3. Now, so this is what I want to unpack. Mercury performs a delightful solo on this theme. It's 1 Mercury day is exactly 2 Mercury years, during which time the planet has spun on its own axis precisely 3 times. Wait, what? All right, let me share another thing for you to see. So we're going to go to some planetary tables here. This one, thanks to Clark Planetarium, though data provided by NASA and Jet Propulsion's laboratory and other official sources. All right, so here we see Mercury. Distance from the sun, length of the year, length of the day. This is what we want to play with right now. All right, so length of the year, 88 days, 87.969 days, but those are 88 Earth days. Why would Mercury care how many Earth days it takes Mercury to orbit the sun? As we saw in previous jams, here on Earth, we're really experiencing Mercury and the sun is like 116 days, their synodic cycle, and how there's, 22 of those in 7 Earth's year, 22 sevenths pi, right? We saw that in different shapes, places as well, right? But look at this, the length of a day on Mercury, okay? So a rotation of Mercury. Let's say we're like the Pleiades are rising on Mercury. The amount of time it takes between consecutive risings of the Pleiades, as seen from Mercury, or of Regulus, is going to be 58.6 days. Let me show this to you in a different table that's only on Mercury, so we can see that period, rotational period, 58.646 days. All right. Well, dividing the 87.969, oops, let me just get a calculator up here. Okay, because now I can use my mouse. So 87.969 Earth days in one Mercury orbit of the sun, a Mercury year, divided by the amount of Earth days, not Mercury days, for one Mercury rotation. So divided by 58.646, we get 1.5. 1 1/2. 3 halves, right? Well, 3 halves, we're going to find 3 to 2 speaks of the note so, the 5th scale tone. Okay, but before we go there, I got to show you something that we're missing from what Martineau reveals here, right? Hopefully that's also on your screen. Well, now it's not. Come on, I'm trying to make a point. Well, 3 of them. Let's just do the triangle game again because it's built in the way that I animated this. Hopefully this triangle's on your screen. Depends on the way that I'm doing the Zoom share, right? Really like to move this here. Dang it, but when I do, that. All right, okay. Mercury performs a delightful solo in the theme as 1 Mercury day is exactly 2 Mercury years. Wait, no, this told us that a Mercury day is 2/3 of a Mercury year. Well, there's different types of days. And sadly, these astronomical tables never really tell us the solar day of the planets, which I find quite frustrating because that's what we're saying here. That a Mercury day is exactly 2 Mercury years. Okay, so that encourages us to consider the difference between solar and sidereal days. Okay, so like a solar day, the Earth spinning with respect to the sun, right? So sunrise to sunreach to sunrest to sunroot to sunrise again. We actually usually measure from sun at the midheaven, the shortest shadow of the day, so sunreach to rest, root, rise to sunreach again, right? So that's the 24-hour period. But think about like if sun's at 0 Aries, right? It's equinox. Sunrise is 0 Aries rise. All right, well, the next day, sunrise, the sun's going to be at like 1 Aries, right? So do you see how 0 Aries rose in less of that time? The tropical day is like 23 hours and 56 minutes, right? So like if sun's rising at 0 Aries, let's say it's at 6 a.m., the next day the sunrise is the 0 Aries rise will be 23 hours and 56 minutes later, right? So like that'll happen 4 minutes before 6 a.m. at 5:56-ish. And that's like average days and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the sidereal day and then this, which is of the stars. So Pleiades rise to Pleiades rise. It's different than the solar day. So the spin with respect to the sun, because Earth's also moving about the sun, right? So if I'm spinning like this, with respect to you, that's a different period than if I'm spinning, but also moving over here with respect to you. Do you see what I mean? Because the sun is moving. Now, there's also solar years and sidereal years. And I'm realizing this is only speaking about days and not years at this article that you can find at this URL. But on Earth, well, there's 365 and about a quarter solar days per year per Earth orbit, right? Earth is actually spun on its own axis just over 366 times. And that's the sidereal days in a solar year, all right? Well, Mercury is spinning so slowly that there is a much greater difference between a solar year on Mercury. So like through the seasons, and by the way, Mercury really doesn't have much of a tilt, right? of the equator with respect to the ecliptic or the orbital path. So the plane of day, spin, and year orbit on Mercury, they're almost the same. Mercury doesn't really have seasons so much. Mercury doesn't really have an atmosphere, but that creates the opportunity for just along with Mercury's incredibly slow spin, with just the most Gemini thing ever. Okay. Mercury's spinning so slowly that half of Mercury is just facing the light for not forever, but for very long periods of time. It's just cooking, it's burning hot, right? Hottest planet in the solar system, so close to the sun. Although with Venus and the very thick atmosphere and the greenhouse gases produced, there's some competition there, okay? But the other side of Mercury, and this isn't true on Venus because Venus distributes because of all the gas, like heat around the entire planet, which is an interesting thing to consider. For Mercury, there's no atmosphere. It's just like the one side facing the sun is just cooking and the other side is freezing. It's said that there's craters on Mercury's dark side that are colder than Saturn. Okay, so half of Mercury burning hot, half of Mercury freezing cold. Do you see the Gemini in that? And also this, on Mercury, there's a day year and a night year. Because if we're just talking about the solar year, and that's like what's more interesting, more experienced, right? Like the seasons on Earth have a much greater experience than from one sidereal year to the next, like the heliacal rising of Sirius, for example, was at the root of some calendrical systems. But the winter, spring, summer, and fall of it all, like that's where we're going to survive and eat and all the things, whether we're nomadic or agricultural or anything like that, right? Also the solar day, like the sidereal day is cool. Like 936 Gemini was rising when I was born. It's interesting to me every day when that sign rises, and it's separated between like 23 hours and 56 minutes to the next one. But sunrise is where it's at, right? Sunrise, reach, rest, and root. The solar day, the solar year, right? So planet sun. Well, again, the sidereal year, so our rotations with respect to a faraway star. On Earth, it's very close to the solar year. It's not the same, and this is part of what leads to, well, let me just go to Mercury. On Mercury, a significant difference, right? So as John Martineau told us, like 1 Mercury day is 2 Mercury years. So this is all solar day, solar year. All right, so the way I like to share this, like if on Mercury, at your place on Mercury, you began year at sunrise, that year, that orbit of the sun, with respect to sun, like your pull on the sun, that year ends at sunset. So the next year begins at sunset and ends at sunrise. So you have a day year and a night year. Day, night, day, night. So Mercury has the 1-to-2 relationship built into her amazing astronomy. There is a day year and a night year. Half is very hot, half is extremely cold, right? Because the spin is just so slow. But now, and I'm going to read this from Martineau again. I think it's just a little easier to hear this explained so elegantly here. Mercury, 1 Mercury day is exactly 2 Mercury years, right? So Mercury is playing this 1-to-2 relationship, during which time the planet has spun on its own axis precisely 3 times. Okay, so that spinning on the own axis, that's going to be the sidereal year. So basically, 1 Mercury day is 2 Mercury solar years is 3 Mercury sidereal years, right? So Mercury, with respect to the sun, which is going to be more important, spins twice in the amount of time that there are 3 Mercury spins with respect to a faraway star like Regulus. Or I think John much more eloquently expresses this, John Martineau, in A Little Book of Coincidences in the Solar System, which says 1 Mercury day is exactly 2 Mercury years, during which time the planet has spun on its own axis precisely 3 times. When we look to these planetary tables, they're talking about how many times the planet spun on its axis. They're not talking about how that planet is experiencing days and years, which is way more important. And John Martineau is focusing there. So I'm going to read that one more time. 1 Mercury day is exactly 2 Mercury years, during which time the planet has spun on its own axis precisely 3 times. Amazing. Okay. And that brings us to our final adventure here today. And then we're going to pick it up in the Venus journey as we speak about the musical fifth. But let's just do this. I've got this set to 88 beats per minute. How cute. 88 Earth days in 1 Mercury year. Wait, why would Mercury care? Let's go to 33. Because thrice great Hermes. 33 beats per minute. Oh, wait. A minute is 60 seconds. So if we do 30 beats per minute, that means there's a beat every 2 seconds. So we already get the 1 and the 2. And this amazing place online called Ploop, all right, so the number 4, then the letters FOUR 4 spelled out .io/Ploop, PLOOP, will really let us get into some of this stuff. It's amazing. So I'm going to do 1 and 2. So this would be the 2 years in 1 Mercury day, or the light year, the dark year, day year, night year, hot, cold, right? 2 and 1. And do this. And now you have a metronome and a visual aid. Thank you, Ploop. All right, but in those 2 Mercury years, in the 1 Mercury day, let's make the 1 day larger, or let's make the 2 years larger. Mercury spins on his own axis 3 times. Hermes, 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 Mercury, Mercury, Mercury. Do that with me. Let's do the 3. Mercury, 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 Mercury. Now let's focus on the 2. Hermes, 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 Hermes. Or, you know, I'll use this word to get all of them. Astrology, astrology, astrology. Or I find Sarasvati, like the consort of Brahma, creator, who also created astrology and language, Sanskrit and music and all of the mercurial things. Sarasvati, 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 Sarasvati. Or I might go Sarasvati, Sarasvati. But I like Sarasvati, Sarasvati. So like one of the tricks to learning these polyrhythms is to find some way to encode the whole rhythm together. So for like 3 and 4, for example, Mercury and Venus, Mercury and Venus, Mercury and Venus. And by the way, 4 and 3 is going to be the relationship of the same 2 notes as 2 and 3, because 2 and 4 is of course an octave. Right? I mean, I can go 1, 2, 4, 8, and these are just octaves. So C and C and C and C. Do you see what I mean? All right, but we're going to end here. This has been forever, of course. The 2 and 3. So this hand is doing 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, Mercury, Mercury. Well, this one, Hermes, Hermes, astrology, astrology. With any polyrhythm, the 2 hands, or the 2 rhythms, will start together, but they will only be together at that one starting point, right? So like 2 and 4, for example, not really a polyrhythm. It's just another octave relationship of 2 and 1. which as you can see do start together and then they, aren't together, right? And you see that in the 2 and the 3, right? All right, well, really the third harmonic is 1/3 of the string, but of course 1/3 of the string, God, you know what? I'm just realizing that my microphone is probably picking up the computer sound in such a way that that just sounded cacophonous. So I'm gonna actually mute myself and play through those one time just so you can hear them. So let's do that. I'm muting myself now. We're gonna hear 1 and 2 and then 2 and 3. All right, and now without that, so astrology, astrology, Sarasvati, Sarasvati, Sarasvati. And again, the only time they're together is the first one. Astrology, astrology, astrology. Learn that. It's amazing. It's hard to at first. Astrology, 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 astrology. Now I'm doing 3 on the 1 here. Mercury, astrology. So if I focus on that, Mercury, 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 Hermes, 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 See how hard? I mean, it's hard for me anyway. 4 and 3, Mercury and Venus, Mercury and Venus. Feel the love between us. And I gotta go and be with my baby. It's nap time. All right. So the last thing I want to show you is this. So back here, when we did 1/3 of the string, that's the third harmonic. It's here. Okay, that's not an octave. It's a new note. Now, it's 1/3 of the pipe. I can't lift enough fingers to get there, okay? But I can play half of that vibration. I can play an octave below it. Which is the 2/3 of the pipe, right? 2/3 is half of 1/3, right? So in the harmonic series, the 1/3, that was 1, 1/2, 1/3, gives me the same musical note as half of that 1/3, which is 2/3, which is the twinkle, twinkle, do, re, mi, fa, sol. And we're going to see in our Venus class how it's that so, that fifth that takes us through 12 fifths to get back to where we began. It's up, there's the Pythagorean comma. I don't know that we're speaking about that in Venus class today, but we'll get there, I think. Because for me, well, music makes the world go round. So I really encourage you to get to know the fifth as well. Twinkle, twinkle, or I've been doing wise men say, take my hand, right? Elvis. There's also, I think this is a great one. Do you hear what I hear, right? Said the night wind to the little lamb, which is this amazing astrological thing. a star, dancing through the night with a tail as big as a kite. But do you hear what I hear? Do I hear? And by the way, like I can actually play those notes in the harmonic series if I start in the second harmonic, third harmonic, fourth harmonic. Second and the fourth, of course, being octaves. Yeah? All right. The last thing I want to show you is this miracle, which is that poly pitch, if we speed it up, becomes, well, polyrhythm. If we speed it up, becomes poly pitch. So what we're going to do, thanks to this amazing creation somebody made, and I'll mute myself to make sure we don't have that interference. 3/2 polyrhythm becomes a perfect fifth interval. So you'll hear, like, it just sounds like 3/2, like beats. Then as it speeds up, those beats become two audible tones, and it's in the musical fifth. Twinkle, twinkle, do you hear? Okay. And then he'll stop at a place where you get to hear those two notes, and he'll speed it up in those two notes themselves. It'll just go from like, like a musical fifth here to this one, to this one, to this one. Just two notes that are vibrating in a 1 to 2/3 relationship, or really a 2 to 3 relationship, not a 1 to 2/3, a 2 to 3 relationship. Okay, so we're going to speed it up and find out that polyrhythm is poly pitch. So thanks to Loudon Steams for making this. Hey, I was born in Boston. All right, let me mute myself, play this, and then we'll be out. Astrology, astrology, the miracles of Mercury. Hopefully you've had a really fun adventure today. If you're interested in pursuing these mysteries, not only through the astrology, which I love to teach and do at Constellations, but also through our sister sciences of sacred geometry and musical harmony and number itself, come on and give Constellations a try. GeminiBrett.com/constellations to do so. Some of you that are hearing this are already in Constellations. You're like, why are you pitching the thing that I'm watching this class within? My bad. I'm also broadcasting this particular third supplemental journey to our Mercury's Earthstrology deep dive to my YouTube, because these are things I'm just too excited to share. Thanks for spending time with me, friends. See you in space. And